Tansei, welcome to Soul Medicine, Ancient Psychologies for Wellness. I am your host, Dr. Karlee Fellner, psychologist and member of the Métis Nation of Alberta. As always, feel free to pick up what fits for you and to leave what doesn't. I'm just here to present a different way of understanding mental health and wellness. This podcast is not intended to provide or take the place of professional advice. If you or someone you know is in need of mental health supports, please reach out to one of the many resources available in your area or to a trusted professional. Rebekah Dunlap is a member of the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Ojibwe, raised on the Fond du Lac Reservation. She began learning about birth as ceremony during her own pregnancy and continued that learning as a doula serving her tribal community. She later earned a doctorate in nursing practice with a specialty in midwifery to better navigate healthcare systems and bring Native perspectives into spaces where they are often missing. Rebekah enjoys consulting around pregnancy and birth as ceremony and supporting families in their birth process. She is always eager to connect and encourages folks to reach out to her. You can find Rebekah's contact information in the episode description below.
Maybe that path was a gift to you so that you could see and so that you could do what you're doing now and create some sort of change because you had that experience. And I love how you turned that around as well. And that you recreated afterwards. You had your hospital birth and then you recreated what you would have done. And I just love that. I actually use it sometimes as an example when people say things like, well, I don't know what to do. This was my plan, and now it went this direction. What can I do? And so I share how you can recreate it. And also, I think, and I don't know, you have more of this information with your degree and whatnot, but I also think about the pathways in the brain, and when you're recreating that, how your mind is it's so powerful, your mind's so powerful that it thinks, oh, wait, no, that's what happened. So you're reclaiming that story and that experience and showing your brain a different pathway. Oh, no, this is what we're doing over here. Also reminds me of kind of like a guided meditation when you think about, oh, I'm on the ocean right now and I can smell the salt and I can hear the birds and I can hear the kids playing and having fun. If you just bring yourself there, your brain is like, oh yeah, no, this is where we're at. And it can dissipate some of that trauma and the things that happened. So you're reclaiming that experience. And I just think that's beautiful that you're able to do that and honor your plan that you had. And what a beautiful way to manifest too the painting that you did. And yeah, so that painting came to me. During the pandemic, I had unfortunately lost my mother-in-law, and we were trying to think of something that we wanted to do. We wanted to create something to recognize her and her life here. And she would have a lot of full moon ceremonies and other ceremonies for women on that land that we chose to build the birth lodge on. And I had told my wife, I said, I've always wanted to learn how to build a birth lodge and to create one for people to come and learn about in the community, so we could invite people here and we could show people. So I virtually at the time had offered virtual tobacco to a friend who had these teachings, and she was gracious enough to share with me, and I was able to mail her a gift later on, during this crazy height of the pandemic, and sent me all the teachings, and I would ask her, additional questions along the way. Oh, that we've done this, now what's next? And so mostly my son and I would work on it, and he was about 11 years old at the time. And so we started building it, and all of a sudden one day, I was getting tagged in all these Facebook comments that somebody in the area was looking for a doula, but was having a hard time finding a native doula. And so I said, sure, I'll talk to the person. So I ended up talking to her. And on our first visit, I said, hey, why don't you come over to our place? I want to show you something. And she came there and she just stood by the lodge, just stood by it for the longest time. And she said, what are you gonna do here? What are you doing? Like, could this be something where people birth? Could I birth here?" And I just was floored. And I thought, we're gonna build this just for like, people to see and learn about. And already somebody was sent and we weren't even finished building it. And so I said, "Absolutely, you could use this. Like, maybe we created this for you. I don't know. I don't know." And so, sure enough, she did. She labored and, goodness, it was such a beautiful, birthful experience. But when we had finished building the lodge and my son had some friends that surprised him to visit, and we did this outdoor birthday party for him. And so they were all playing outside, and I had extra pieces of the tree, the maple tree, the tree of life that were left over from building the lodge. And I created a fire and we put the wood in the fire and they're out there playing. And I just thought it was really cute. And so I snapped a picture and then I looked and I was like, wow, what? No, that can't. That was my eyes. I saw something at the top of the lodge. So I got a couple more pictures and it was like, that looks like a bean, not just like a little round orb. It looked like a bean. And I was just floored. And I think I told, 2, 3 elders that I knew. And all of a sudden one day, one of them sent me the the painting that you had done and said, "Look at this painting." And I don't know on your end what was happening, or you must have posted it or was sharing your story. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks like the real life lodge that we just built. And there's that woman at the top. I was just taken aback and I had to reach out. And so I reached out to you and sent you that picture and shared the story, not knowing your story and that you were pregnant or anything. And or that you would even reach back out. I thought, "Oh my goodness." I'm just thinking people are worlds apart, and I don't know what your story is or who you are or, how busy you are, or, like, I'm thinking she's fancy artist, and she's probably got all kinds of things going on. She's not gonna reach back out to little old me, and the rest is really history. And I just think, even just like our conversation so far, it's so telling, so validating. Like they're out there validating our dreams and our manifestations and visions and sharing the story with us. That's why I say, like, find your vision, find your space to dream and to connect because they will speak to you. And they're right there just wanting to share their knowledge with us.
Uh-huh.
So magical.
Oh, it is. I know. We were just, like I say, I mean, yeah, you're a sister, right? Like it was so meant to be.
Yeah,
And how beautiful that that brought us together and everything
yeah.
that's transpired since, right? Yeah, it's just it's fascinating how spirit works sometimes. And to think about, I'm gonna be honest, when I had that experience with my first birth, I was pretty pissed off because I said I was already an activist in these spaces. I already
Wow.
knew what the system was doing wrong. I didn't have to go through this to have that fire of justice, within me. It
Mhm.
was already there. And so I remember being like pretty angry about that.
Yeah.
But because I was kinda like, "What," I already knew how bad it was. I didn't need to experience it firsthand. I've been through enough
Mhm.
things. That being said, that rebirthing ceremony that as you mentioned, I think what that experience did open up for me, I don't know if I would have taken the 13 Moons to Birth Work program through Indigenous Birth Alberta. I was in their first cohort of 13 Moons, which started when Nato was a baby. So it was not too long after my birth. And I mean, through that program, I ended up connecting with some people, many people actually who were on the maskihkiy team and others who are coming. So there was that piece, but I remember doing that rebirthing ceremony, right? Which was for me, it was setting up the lodge again in a different location, but setting up the lodge, the teepee, and being surrounded by community and literally going through the motions of the birth as it was visioned prior to happening, minus the water. I didn't do that piece, but I got that with
Mhm.
my second baby. But, it was having these beautiful people like Natalie Wynn Dempsey, who stepped in as the one that helped to deliver my son. And we did
Oh,
that when he was 9 months old, actually on his
mm,
9-month birthday. So the day he turned 9 months old, we did that, and we stayed in the lodge that night, and I remember waking up the next morning and stepping outside. I really had to go to the bathroom. It was like 5 a.m., and it was incredible. There was a double rainbow over the lodge,
oh,
which was so cool because, I mean, there's a whole story to the lodge itself. That even when I went and picked up the lodge prior to the birth, I there was a double rainbow the day I picked it up, and then there's this
oh,
rainbow the day that this rebirthing happened. And I remember even in that moment being like, maybe this was part of the purpose of this, was even learning how to support people in that experience of rebirthing, right? For me, I kind of went through this whole thing where I almost felt like I had strayed off the path that spirit had shown me, and that I needed to correct that because I had stepped out of alignment in that fear, someone else's fear, which then became my fear because I followed it, right? And just knowing this just reminds me of Gary Zukov, who wrote Seed of the Soul. And he says that when we act from a place of fear, it creates destructive consequences. And it does, unless we are in a survival situation. There's a grizzly bear right in front of us, and our body kicks into fight, flight, freeze, collapse, and does what it needs to do to survive.
mhm,
Different scenario, but yeah, and so I had done it kind of as a course correction, but then also realized in that process, like you say, the whole reorganizing of the physiology that does take place, and that, we understand through Inuak indigenous people's understandings of time, that time is a spiral. It's not linear, right? So in that moment, in that future time, we are traveling back to that time in the past. And so there's a very real shift that happens with those times
mhm.
coming together. One of these days when I have more time, I need to read more about metaphysics because I feel like it'll give me the language to articulate some of this more, leap into the quantum world. But really, I always say these are those things that are beyond language sometimes, that are just so much more significant than we realize. And the ripple effect, right? Like when you talk about putting together that lodge as like a teaching tool, and then before it's even finished, there's somebody that knows I need to have my baby in there, right? And the ripple effects of that. It was just how many months would it have been? May, June, 4 months after Pita was born. I believe to the day, another woman birthed her baby in the lodge where Pete on the land, right? And how incredible, because it's because that space was available,
Yeah.
because this was a thing. And my midwife had asked me, "Hey, would you be open to someone else birthing in there?" And I was like, "Yes, yes, yes, please, please. If I can make
Mhm.
that available to people to birth on the land." So just all the ripples of all of this, and like our
Yeah.
connection, and then even looking at the work today that Maskihkiy is doing with the Survivors Circle for reproductive justice. And
Mm,
and you supported us in that work in various ways as well. And just realizing like, wow, like, yeah, this going back to the land, going back to those lodges, going back to these teachings is, I mean, it's like you were saying earlier, the protection, it's the prevention, it's the medicine all in one, right? You're healing generations
yeah.
to reclaim those processes. You're healing the ones before, you're healing the ones
Mhm.
to come. Um, and I remember having that experience birthing Pita on the land. And actually, I heard a similar account from the other person who birthed there, of you feel the collective shift
Mm,
of all of these people who didn't have the chance to birth on the land. Like there's a real deep grief there.
mhm.
And all of those who have experienced obstetric violence, which is
Yeah.
a very real thing, and we have to be honest about it, and we have to talk about it.
Mhm,
We're
mhm.
in a time today where Indigenous people of color in particular, and of course other groups that are marginalized and oppressed, are still forced and coerced into sterilization at far higher rates, right, than you would see with people of privileged intersectionalities. And so these are important conversations that have important impacts beyond
Yeah.
what we realize, and just making those spaces available. I just think,
Mhm.
because if you're birthing on the land, that doesn't even come into the space. You know?
Yeah.
There's no sterilization that's happening there. Uh, I've thought about that when we're
Yeah.
working with the survivors.
Oh,
Like, and how
yeah.
can we make, again, we're seeing a lot more birth centers pop up, things like that. And also, how can we make birthing on the land, birthing in lodges again, more accessible in more
Yeah.
areas, right?
Mhm.
That's something I hope
Yeah.
to see in my
I
time.
would love that. I think a lot of people would love that, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, whew, my mind is all over the place, but, just thinking about your rebirthing and how that completely changed, your experience, and then you were able to, um, have that new experience with your second baby. I can't imagine how healing that must have been for you, and for your spirit and your soul, and I think you're absolutely right. In fact, I know you are when you say that it also heals our ancestors, the generations before. I know it in my heart. I've seen it in my dreams. They've come to me and told me that what we're doing is healing them as well. So
Mhm.
know that it is absolutely true. It's not just for us, but it is for them and it is for our future too.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and my nana's grandma, Elizabeth Jane Pruden, she was a traditional midwife. That's what she
Mm.
did, and she delivered hundreds of babies on dirt
Aw.
floors, in shacks
Yes.
on the land, and I think
Right.
of how present she is with me too.
Yeah.
And what's interesting in all of this at the end of the day is, I was a baby who wouldn't have been born without Euro-Western emergency medicine. And so, I always think of that as such an interesting thing, right? It's like holding
Mhm.
and know, that there's ways to do this work, and it doesn't have to be us versus them, or this like tension, right? And again, I know it sounds like it's totally naive and whatever, this sort, like, can't we all just get along? But I do hope to see these systems shift to honor
Right.
the sacredness of what birth is.
Mhm.
Take the hands off and say, "You know what? Yeah, birth is not a medical emergency. It's not.
Yeah. Mhm.
Medical emergency arises during the process, as it can at any other time in life, then, we're there for it, right? But just to be able to say, yeah, this in itself is a sacred, incredible experience, right? And I think about all the people who haven't birthed yet, and if I could communicate a message with them, it would just be to not fear it, and to notice all the fear that we're conditioned with.
Mhm.
And then it's like, yeah, we live in a world today where a lot of us don't grow up with that exposure to and experience with birthing like we would have in community.
Right. Right. Yeah.
As a little girl, I would have been witnessing births. I would
Right.
have grown up, I wouldn't have had that fear, right?
Yeah.
There is no fear, and you've got your medicines, and you've got your supports, you've got the grandmas and the aunties, and, all your people wrapping around you, and so without that, we really do need to find the ways to reclaim the sacredness, and also to prepare ourselves, because so much of us grow up without the preparation.
Mhm.
Right? So it's kind of looking to what's out there practically to
Yeah.
support us. And I know for me, hypnobirthing was
Mhm.
incredible. Highly recommend to anybody that has a baby to do some learning in hypnobirthing. I did a virtual course. It was during the pandemic. It was so good. And you talk about those messages. I remember when I was birthing Pita, because it is painful. Let's not, we're not going to beat around the bush. By far the most physically painful experience I've ever had. However, it's temporary, right?
Yeah.
And like blessings to my midwife for shouting that in my ear.
Oh, yes.
It's not gonna be much longer. And I remember in that moment, because you're so lost in the
Yeah.
process and the pain, just being like, oh yeah, this is gonna end. Oh yeah, it's not gonna hurt forever. But I remember putting on the hypnobirthing like affirmations where this woman's calming voice is saying your body is opening and this all
Oh.
this stuff, and I was actually swearing at the recording. "No, it's not," and I'm just, like, yelling and swearing. It's so funny, though, but it's like but what a beautiful experience, what a beautiful memory, right? It doesn't mean it's not hard, and
Yeah.
I'm always saying the same thing from a psychological mental health perspective and whatever, right? That's we are born into this life that is filled with experiences of pain, loss, grief,
Yeah.
trauma. There are aspects of being a human that are inevitable. Even if we were living somehow in a perfect world, we would still
Mhm.
experience loss.
Mhm.
We would still experience injury,
Yes.
and so, there's kind of this again, and it comes from the current dominating system. It's wrapped up in colonialism, it's wrapped up in capitalism. This idea that we're not supposed to experience pain. We're meant to
Mhm.
experience pleasure all the time. We're meant to be happy. And I spoke about this in one of the early episodes of the podcast. That maintains a system of power, profit, privilege, and patriarchy. It leads us to invest in medications. It leads us to invest in things that we think are going to take away pain, suffering, difficulty. Trust me, if there was a magic pill that we could all be happy and best friends, I would love it. I'd be the first person in line. It doesn't exist, right? This is life. This is the journey of life. And so for people not to fear that pain, but to just
Yeah.
to prep for it, right? Prep for
Right. Yeah.
know that it's temporary, like you say, have your
Mhm.
supports there, your trusted people. As we know, and the research says it too, within the mainstream system, research says it. When our bodies are more relaxed, when we have soft
Mhm.
lighting, when we have music, when for me it was the smudge and the eagle fan that helped me
Mhm.
during that time. That helps our body open up more easily.
Yeah.
When we
Yeah.
are in a
Mhm.
context and environment with bright lights, loud sounds, all these things that are putting our body into, it's activating our sympathetic nervous system. It closes things up so that our body can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember when I was prepping to birth Nato, it was either in one of those podcasts or I was reading some research on it about how some of the easiest births are people who are actually like in comas because
Mhm.
their body and the baby just move out without interference, right? Not saying that that's an ideal scenario, but it just goes to show it's just about
Mhm.
preparation, right? We prepare ourselves. We still don't know what to expect until the moment. We can be super
Yeah.
prepared and still be caught off guard, but to know that it's part of the human experience and it's so friggin' incredible to have that experience and be present
Absolutely.
for it, right?
Yes. Absolutely. Yes, you are sharing so much that I would share with people too. And yes, it is. And you're, like I said before, your mind is so powerful. Your body is so powerful. It knows what to do. And so just kind of like tuning in and letting go of maybe some of the messages that you have picked up along the way about what it should be, what it looks like, what you see on television or in stories, and recreating those messages for yourself and telling yourself, perhaps even coming up with a mantra. My body is powerful. My body knows what to do. I am going to be relaxed. I I know how to birth my baby, and I'm gonna do it in a way that feels good to me. My baby knows what to do too. So babies are very smart. They know how to move through that birth canal. So, yeah, talking to your baby, telling your baby things, listening to them, and just knowing too, like they're coming in too with their own messages and teachings. And that's one thing too that I was thinking about in your experience with pita, but that I really started to come up with this theory at one point where I started to learn about our cultural teachings. And our teachings say that our babies are coming in and they are getting messages from our ancestors, and they're telling them stories, and they're gifting them with things before they come, and they're preparing them spiritually. But then I think about, oh my goodness, this person over here was induced again. They had a cesarean or what have you. What is that? What happens there? When the ancestors are trying to gift this little being their teachings and messages before they enter earth side, but then we're forcing them to hurry up and get here because they're on our timeline. The provider, the OBGYN or midwife or what have you, has to leave at midnight, or they don't want to deliver a baby at 2 in the morning or what have you. And so I thought about that along the way, and I thought, oh my goodness, no, the babies know too when it's their time. Just let them come in their own time. Let them have that time with their ancestors. And like you even said earlier, and that Kathy was sharing, that perhaps there's a grieving process on the other side too, that they're letting go of that spirit being and knowing that they're gonna be going with their family on the other side, and, just letting that process happen. I just think that's so vital and so important that we let them come in their own time, and, I mean, it's a natural process, and, our bodies and our babies know what
Yeah.
to do together. It was created that in a perfect way.
Yeah, yeah, it
Mhm.
absolutely was. Well, yeah, and with Nato, because I remember on his due date, which is a whole other interesting thing, right? Because when I calculated my due date with him based on moon
Yeah.
time, my moon time, his due date was September 19th. When they did the ultrasound, the dating ultrasound, the due date was September 11th.
Mhm.
Then my due date ends up being September 11th for him, and so that's what we use the whole time. So September 11th rolls around, it's, 40 weeks or so it's clocked in at through the
Yeah.
dating ultrasound that had been done at the beginning, and there, again, that was a piece of fear that kinda entered in my provider's end. I wasn't too concerned, but I had a dream that night where literally he was in a lodge in the stars with star people. I painted this one too. And the dream told me he's still receiving teachings. He's not coming yet, right? So it's going to be a little while.
Yeah.
He ended up being born on September 19th, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have my second, and here I am, right, all these risk factors. I'm 39 years old too. That's, geriatric. Again, all the language they use, right? And we all sort of, I don't want to speak for everyone, but we all kind of wrestled a bit with Pita, right? Like, what are you doing in there, girl? Because she was almost 43 weeks, right? But I really did learn. I didn't have any dreams or anything during that time, but, I knew what I learned from Nato about that
Mhm.
she's still up to something. But then also learning, and this was my midwife, who had
Mhm.
that talk with me about the role of the baby in the process of getting labor going, right? And that they
Mhm.
they know when they are best positioned to come out. So
Yeah.
there's this piece, and this is what I hope to see one day, is that the Euro-Western medical model opens up the research to look at, like, yeah, let's see what's happening here because the babies know when they're in position. Also, let's be honest, this 40-week thing, since when did anything with a living being go exactly by a Gregorian calendar? Like, it's diversity of bodies, right? Some babies
Yeah.
come sooner, some babies come later. It's where there's no does it work that way in the animal world? Does every elephant have their baby on the exact same day, week schedule? No. You got approximates, but people also have to remember this is not a hard line.
Yeah.
And there's so much pressure when people get to that 40 week, and this is where we see the cascade of intervention, right? This is where we can see the creation of medical emergencies that
Mhm.
have existed. that baby knows I'm not ready yet. My body's not in position. And so if an induction happens, that baby starts moving out because of what's being done to move the baby out and get the contractions going, but their body isn't in position. So then you end up having intervention after intervention, sometimes ends up in a C-section. That never would have happened had the process been, like I say, hands off,
Hands off, yeah.
allow things to unfold as they do, step in if there's an emergency, but
Mm,
leaning into trusting this natural process that
yeah.
has existed since the dawn of creation, right? That exists
Mhm.
in every species on the planet that births babies, you know? Um, yeah, yeah. So really just honoring that little one too, and the things they know that we don't know, right? Pita was up to stuff, and she knew when she was ready to come, but she also had things that she wanted me to work through. I know that she had some things that she wanted to bring up for me before she came in, right? Some things for me
Mm,
to work through. And that's another thing I'm always reminding people who are pregnant and in the postpartum time and stuff as well, that again, the conventional worldview kind of talks about hormones and how we're crazy and all of these crazy emotions and all this stuff. But I really do understand that as like that little spirit is just bringing things up for us to heal and shift to whatever is coming up during that time, especially the time that we're carrying. Because, I know that we have cultural teachings. I've received cultural teachings, right, about keeping a positive mindset, having good thoughts while you're carrying your baby, things like that.
yeah.
And that can be really hard for people because it sometimes
Mhm.
feels like, well, but I'm struggling, I'm not feeling good, and they feel like
Mhm.
they're doing a disservice to their baby or they're doing something wrong. And I just really like to remind people to have a lot of grace
Yeah.
there and that it's okay, right? It's
Mhm.
okay. These conversations are coming up through your body, not because, I mean, yes, there are absolutely hormonal influences and things like that, but it's not because there's something wrong with you or because you
Yeah.
can't keep a positive mindset or because your hormones and emotions are way off the charts. It's not because of that. It's coming up because baby has something there that they're like, "Hey, here's a thing that I want you to attend to," right? Bring something here back
Yeah.
to balance. And that's not a bad thing. I really struggled those couple of weeks that I was waiting impatiently for pita until I finally let go. But that was such an important time because what I was learning in there was power, right?
Yeah.
Personal power and faith, really connecting
Mhm.
into faith, really knowing
Mhm.
this world out here is saying all this, the numbers are saying this, the measurements are saying this, the wow, 43 weeks, right? All the stuff, right? Just bombard. But just pushing that away, connecting in with spirit. What an incredible gift she brought me, forcing me to unearth these parts of me that were in a colonized mindset, right? That were still holding on to fear. That
Yeah.
still gave a certain amount of weight to numbers. And to be able to release that and connect into a faith and into a power that will serve her so well, having me as a mother. So, yeah, it's like those journeys are happening in both sides, and it's really that process of surrender.
Right.
Surrendering,
Yeah.
right, and just letting go and letting yourself be in this incredible experience that is like nothing else you can experience in this lifetime.
Mhm. Absolutely. And they can teach us so much, right? I mean, not only in the womb, but then when they come earthside with us. And I think something that totally shifted my perspective and way of parenting was when somebody said, our babies are our ancestors. If you just think about it, they came from the stars, ancient, ancient stars in the sky. And here they are in front of us. So, how would we treat them if we thought about them in that way? And it just completely changed my perspective. And I have done my due diligence to treat my child with the utmost respect ever since I received that teaching. I just think that is so beautiful how your child gave you teachings before she even came here. And now to think, about all the beautiful teachings she'll continue to pass on to you as well. It's just absolutely, I think, a magical experience. And to be able to have them walk alongside us during our lifetime here is such an honor.
Yeah. Oh, it really is. I feel like we could talk and talk and talk about this forever. There's so much. But before we wrap up, I did want to invite, if there's anything else you would like to share from your perspective as a birth,
Mhm.
with an incredible amount of training in both worlds, right? You have all the conventional training and then you have all this traditional knowledge as well.
Yeah. I think the ones who are forgotten the most are the males in our communities. And I would see it happen unintentionally, but I think it kind of provides this disconnect and almost like, you hear messages like, the dad just took off or they're never around but we need to find ways to draw them in and to help them feel like they have a role, whether you're a doula, you're a midwife, you're an OB, making sure that you're also talking to them, that you're also including them. And when we talk about birth and pregnancy as ceremony, males in the communities also had their roles. So making sure that we're providing them with a role and a way to connect with their child, or maybe their stepchild, or maybe they're an uncle in the community, somebody that they're trusted and feel close to the family. But making sure that the males are included and that they find a sense of purpose within that experience, whether it's, the mom is expected to exercise and have good nutrition, and so is the partner alongside them. And so they're also having that role of like, okay, we're both going to go walking today, and we're both going to drink our water and make sure that we're staying healthy together, and let go of substance use if that's a path that they've been on before. We're going to do this together, and making, maybe you're a midwife and you can ask the partner, do you want to put your hands on the baby as the baby comes out? I've heard of fathers saying how connected they felt with their child with that experience. And so just finding ways for them to connect could be being space for the fire, going out and getting groceries, eating ice chips to the person that's in labor, things like that. Making sure that they have some sort of role and connection, I think, is really vital for our communities to stay healthy and bonded.
Yeah, that's so important. It's that balance again, right?
Right.
Well, that's one of our intentions, with maskihkiy as we get more of our on-site land-based programming going is to offer those spaces for both and
Yeah.
for all of our relatives of all genders. There's so much beauty that can happen there when we're in our roles and we're back in balance and alignment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Carly. This has really been a pleasure. And it's just easy. It's so easy to be in company with you, and I appreciate all that you're gifting us with. So,
Mhm.
Chimiigwech, I appreciate you.
And she miigwech to you as well. Hi, hi. Thank you so much for listening to season 1 of Soul Medicine. While we take a break between seasons, please subscribe to our channel, follow our social media accounts, or sign up for our newsletter at www.maskihkiy.com to be the first to know about the season 2 launch. Until then, muestas. We'll see you again.